I know lots of people say Japanese people are so altruistic, they're so friendly, they're so nice. Let me tell you, they are on the surface. According to Charities Aid Foundation, the World Helping Index, which just shows how many people help others, how many people give it to charity, Japan ranked the worst, second worst, 119 countries. So Japan ranked 118th, meaning very few people are willing to help others, very few people are willing to give it to charity. As you read it on the title, today I'm going to talk about why Japan, in my opinion, is an island of hypocrites. First part, I'm going to just give it some opinions according to an expert. There's an association called Japan Foundation Association, and the leader of there, I think it was Mr. Miyamoto. He's saying, well, after there was an earthquake in 1995 or 1996 on January 17th. And there was a huge earthquake in Kansai, Osaka area, and some people started to do charity. They started to do some work for the people who got affected by the earthquake, and even more after the 2011 earthquake in Tokyo, like the Kanto area, where you've heard of Fukushima. That's when that happened in 2011. Many more people started to see the commercials promoting the help, requesting help for the people there, and they raised a lot of funds that time. But according to him, as you can see, according to the World Helping Index that I showed you, it's still like the worst, second worst in 119 countries. So yeah, Mr. Miyamoto still agrees. Well, we still don't have the charity culture. And he says the reason why the charity isn't very profound in Japanese culture is because very few people are actually trusting those organizations on how to use that money. Very few people trust if the money they put into will be used for for the goodwill. I mean, that's a great mindset to have, right? You never know if the organizations will use your money for a greater good. Sometimes they're corrupted, right? My mom would always say when give it to charity, she always give me the doubts if my money will be used for goodwill. I mean, that's like a typical Japanese reaction to someone who's doing charity and so on, when she doesn't give it to anyone else. According to most people, the reason why they're not trusting the funds or the organizations is because they've just seen some corrupted organizations in the past, and they just found it more convenient to just think they're all corrupted, every organization is corrupted, so they just stopped trusting those organizations. So they're like black and white. If they see one example, they just immediately group them together. Other example I can give you is there's Omu Shinrikyo. It's a famous cult in Japan, which is responsible for killing many people on the train by spreading saline, which is like a chemical that kills people. The leader of the cult was executed. I think it was like in like 5 years ago or something. I forgot exactly. But the cult was, manipulating lots of people. They just start a yoga class as an introduction. They start to make those followers pay money and so on. And they just dig into it, dig deep into it. So when the massive saline leak on the train or metro happened, it was all over the news. I think it was like 20 years ago or something. I was so little, so I don't really remember. But like that was when the news was like all over the TV. And I think that really, Japan is atheistic country. There's nothing wrong with that. But like people are so prejudiced or have prejudice against like any religion just because of that cult. Even for Buddhism, Christianity, Judaism, everything. They're like been going on for a long time, right? So like many people are opposed to religions in Japan. I'm an atheist myself, but I'm not saying atheism is the best option. I'm not denying Christianity, Buddhism, or any other religions for that matter. I think anyone can follow a religion, have a faith, as long as it's not harmful to others. If it's not like the Om Shinrikyo that I mentioned, I think it's fine. But like Japanese people seem to be very careful when they say the word shukyo, which means religion, just because they've seen the cult that killed massive number of people on the metro. And I think that's extreme. I can give you another example. So this is my mom's example. When she hears about war in like the Middle East, Israel, Ukraine, any war, she's just so worried. And when I leave the country, she's always saying, "Well, like don't let other people force you to selling your organs or watch out your luggage all the time. Otherwise, I don't know, your luggage will be swapped with full of a suitcase full of drugs, and you go to prison. Something like that." And yeah, it can happen, right? It can happen more often outside of Japan. Japan is the safest country. But for example, I'm in the Czech Republic, and that's one of the safest countries in the world too. But like she's saying like, well, be careful of like cocaine and stuff. Like be careful with drug trafficking. Be careful of human trafficking. Just because she heard some news abroad that happened, like one incident that there was like kidnapping or something. This is just one incident, right? And the reason why it's on the news is because that's rare, in my opinion. If that's on the news, if like kidnapping, killing, raping is like happening like all the time, I don't think there will be news about it on the TV. That's just my opinion. But anyway, so far I've talked about something related to charity, the Japanese mindset, but I'm gonna give some my opinion and my hypothesis why like lots of Japanese people are opposed to giving out. So firstly, Japanese people are nice on the surface only. Okay, they talk on other people's backs. That do that all the time, and they don't actually help others. If when they help others, it's because they're afraid of other people's looks. If someone is dying on the street, if everyone helped them, yeah, they would help. But if you go to like a big cities in like Tokyo, Osaka, if someone is passed out on the street, nobody helps. And precisely because nobody helps, nobody helps. You know what I mean? If other people are not doing that, I'm not gonna do that. That's kind of bystander effect. There you go, that's the word. And bystander effect, social pressure, peer pressure, like caring what other people think is so strong in Japan. amongst Japanese people. So if a charity giving out, helping others, being altruistic is not common in Japan, then nobody does it. That's just the reality. When typical Japanese person sees the Ukrainian war on TV, they would just say, "Oh, I'm so sorry. That's terrible." That's all they say. They don't do anything. They don't just give it to charity or anything. They just say, "Oh, they're sorry." You know. If they see someone passing out on the street, they just leave it to other people to call an ambulance or reach out, give a helping hand. They just don't want to look different in front of others, because helping others is considered different, although it's a good behavior. Here's how I put it. Even if it's like a good behavior, Japanese people don't think for themselves. They would just look at other people, look at surroundings. Even if it's a good behavior, for example, just picking up the rubbish out of the street, if nobody does it, nobody does it. If everyone's doing it, yeah, they do it. Even if it's a bad behavior, for example, I don't know, just ignoring people on the street. That's bad behavior. If you ask me, that's guilty as charged, because even if you're not involved with the incident, even if you're not the offender to that person, if you just ignore someone who's dying on the street, I think you're involved, passively involved. I talked about this like passive aggressiveness in like other videos of mine, but that's so prevalent. That's so, what's the word? Common in like Japanese people. They just want to be like everyone else. Even if it's a good behavior, they are not willing to do it if nobody else is doing it. Even if it's a bad behavior, they choose to do it if everyone is doing it. That's just Japanese. And the reason why the streets are clean is because nobody is littering. If everyone was littering, they litter. For example, at nighttime, where nobody's seeing, nobody's watching, they litter because they don't care. Because nobody's watching. And there's like a famous live streamer, a Japanese live streamer living in France. He actually made a point that Japanese people would rather be unhappy if everyone else is unhappy. They are happy being unhappy if everyone else is. So the Japanese people don't even look for a better life. They don't even seek for help if they know everyone else is suffering. They just rather stay depressed if everyone else is depressed. That's the Japanese mindset, and you can see why I dislike living in Japan for that reason. I think it's like main thing that I dislike about Japan is the people, the overly toxic collectivistic culture they have in Japan. And I just don't really. Some people, for some reason, some people, when I talk about Japanese culture being very, very collectivistic, and you're expected to be like everyone else, some people are fascinated by it. Some people actually say they prefer that way. I'm like, why would you prefer? Like, you are expected to behave the same way as others? Like, why do you prefer that? You're just killing your personality, and you're just killing your creativity. I'm not them, so I don't know why. I'm not even gonna question. Or like I saw like someone on the TV, like they are interviewing non-Japanese people living in Japan, and they're asking why. It's like the salary is low, life is not so good in Japan, and they're saying, well, one of the guys was like German. He was saying, I love tatemae and honne. Tatemae and honne. I'll just have that word written in the description. You can check that out. But tatemae and honne just basically means masking, the tatemae is like the mask you wear when you talk to someone, and honne is the genuine feelings. And he says like, oh, in German culture, they don't have it. I mean, I prefer that. I'd rather have someone who just be honest with me. I mean, if they're like too honest, probably that's a problem too. But like Japanese people can be too dishonest because of the tatemae and honne. And also, Japanese people don't care about like exploitation of workers or animals or pet shops being exploited. Like very few people talk about the darkness behind fast fashion, for example. They don't care about the child labor that's happening. So that's why you see a lot of, very few fair trade goods, and unfortunately, very few people know what fair trade is. You see a lot of cheap clothing that are manufactured in a fast fashion way. It's really common in Japan. And pet shops is still legal. They breed dogs and cats so that just people can just buy them instead of adopt them. And if they don't like them, they just abandon them and they become stray dogs, stray cats. That's unfortunately quite common. So yeah, you see, I don't like Japanese culture, Japanese people especially. Anyway, in conclusion, Japanese people don't help others. They pretend they are nice. They pretend to be nice, yes, but they're actually not being nice. They're actually just being fake. Fake kindness. And when when you're not looking at them, when they're not being seen, they are very selfish. They don't try to give out to charities. They just, choose what's convenient for them. And I don't think that's kindness, but I think it's hypocrisy. So that's why I like to call it the island of hypocrites. Anyway, thank you so much for watching. If you liked it, please give it a thumbs up. And I'll see you in the next one. Until next time.